Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning.
A podcast where we share with you great insights about everything family from over 30 years of parenting 7 kids and over a decade of equipping parents through our Crazy Cool Family ministry.
So let us inspire and equip you to build your best family.
Hey, welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast. Don here this time with a new acquaintance of mine, Bruce McCracken. Bruce, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Don. I'm delighted to have the chance to talk to you.
So Bruce is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I guess, have you been there for a long time? Have you been in Lancaster for a long time?
Yeah, we've been here since 1983. So it's at 40 years.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So just a few years, huh?
Just a few years, over half my life. Yes.
So Bruce has a wonderful ministry called the Marriage Hub, and nationwide ministry. They do work with marriages all over the country, and we're going to explore that a little bit, and we're going to explore some things they do with just marriage intensives, marriage coaching, and probably, I hope along the way, gain some insight from Bruce about marriage in general that's going to help us. So really excited to have you today, Bruce. Just start us out with, you've got a pretty impressive resume here from a marriage standpoint. So let's qualify you first, and also just tell us about your family a little bit.
All right. Well, starting with my family, Karen, my wife of 49 years, and I battled infertility for 9 years, and the Lord blessed us with 2 sons. I call them Curly and Larry. After 2, they didn't win no Mo, right? So that's
right.
The way that goes. And both of my boys are married now, so I have 2 daughter-in-laws, and we have 7 grandchildren, all here in Lancaster. We're no more than 20 minutes apart. That leave and cleave thing sometimes gets hard, but it's nice to have them because it helps us become part of the legacy building process to our grandkids. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you gotta be as old as we are to know the Curly and Moe reference, don't you?
Yeah, that's true. If people don't know the Three Stooges, we're in trouble.
I used to watch that on when I was a kid, and all the Three Stooges episodes. It's in black and white if you want to go back and watch it. I'm sure it's on some service now.
Yeah, you can find it, I'm sure. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So and it's great to have your family close by.
Yes.
That's really that's awesome. So, and then how did you get into marriage ministry?
Well, that's a long story, Don, but it goes all the way back to my senior year in college, 1974. So back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I was a youth ministry major and was doing an internship in several little small churches out there in Upland, Indiana. I went to Taylor University and was 74, as I said, and the impact of the sexual revolution of the late 60s was beginning to hit the church, infiltrate the church, and we were seeing divorces in the church, something the church hadn't really seen a whole lot of before. And I was dealing with kids coming from broken homes, and parents, single moms and dads didn't know how to handle it. The church didn't know how to handle it. And that's when I guess I had an aha moment that the power of the nuclear family and what God wanted and why God did what he did in creating Adam and Eve as the hub of all of culture and society. But my problem was I was 19 years old. So I wanted to become a missionary to the American family at 19, not even being married, no kids. So I had to do a little waiting. One of the first seminars I did, you'll get a kick out of this. I was doing a parenting seminar as part of my graduate work at Taylor, and a old farmer raised his hand and said, "Well, excuse me, son, how long you been married?" And I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah.
So I got married in 74 to Karen, and we served 2 churches in the area of youth ministry. I went on and did that, and then I wanted to pursue my graduate degree. Went to Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and ran into a prof there called Dr. Charles Sell, and he was one of the seminal writers in the area of family ministry, marriage ministry. And he became one of my mentors and fed that passion that I had as a college senior to continue to pursue. So I did most of my grad work that I could do electives in the area of marriage and family. Got my master's degree from Trinity, came out here to Lancaster to teach at Lancaster Bible College in 1983, taught in the Christian Ed department, taught youth ministry here and marriage and family ministry here, and did a lot of speaking with Karen under the moniker of House on the Rock. We weren't incorporated. We just used the name, and eventually 2 elders from my church took me out to lunch and said, when are you going to take this House on the Rock thing to the next level? The church needs it. The body of Christ needs it. And I'd not thought about that, honestly, Don. I mean, I had earned my doctoral degree by then, and I did my doctoral studies in the area of marriage and family life education. And so we began praying about leaving the Bible college. I'd been there for 23 years, had my terminal degree, was in an administration position. Truthfully, I probably could have coasted my way out, but
Right.
God didn't want me to do that. And Karen was on board. And so long story short, in 2004, we incorporated House on the Rock Family Ministries as a 501c3, put a board together, and began doing some ministry work. I left the college 2006 to come on full time. And we began doing ministry to men, marriages, families. And really, I gave birth to the ministry to try to call the church to awareness of the importance of building families to build churches. And I don't need to tell you this, but, a lot of church leadership today isn't interested in building families. They're interested in building their church, but they don't see the link between building the family and building the church. And honestly, it discouraged me a little bit, and it pushed me out of working with a lot of local churches to the more, what I call the capital C church, the body of Christ on a broader venue for us. That's what made us move from a little local ministry to something a little bigger, because we'd work with any church that wanted to work with us. Anyway, 2008, 2009, when the economy hit, we refocused our ministry down. Churches didn't pay for resource people anymore. You could bring a DVD in for $25. Why would you pay an outside resource to come in and lead some things for you? So we began to put a lot of our stuff out on the web and use that as a way of generating ministry opportunities for us. So we refocused into marriages and applied for our doing business as the Marriage Hub then. And I don't know how much you want me to talk about, but we moved very specifically into intensives. Karen and I were speaking at Sandy Cove.
Well, and that's
And we ran.
what we'll talk about today is that you guys now in the marriagehub.com, and people can see that if they want to go to that website. We'll talk more about that later. But you in that you guys do really 2 things for marriages. One of them is the intensives, and one of them is just coaching. And I think for, a lot of us have been to marriage conferences, maybe, where it's more educational in nature, and you go and you hear some speakers or whatever, there's a family life conference and things like that.
Right.
But I think today for this podcast, one, I wanted to have everybody hear your background so you could see that Bruce isn't just, somebody off the street that decided to start a marriage deal. I mean, he's been studying families for years, head of the Christian Education Department at Lancaster Bible College. I mean, he's been doing this stuff for a long time. And so, but really want to dig in a little bit to say, there's the intensive and kind of what that is, and coaching, and that may be new terms for some of the people that are here, or maybe they've heard the term, but they really don't know what it is. So
Sure.
Let's talk about an intensive first.
Okay.
Why are they important, and what effect can they have on marriages? Who usually goes, that type of stuff. So let's talk about intensives first.
All right. Well, we got into doing marriage intensives, and I honestly started, the Marriage Hub to do marriage enrichment, trying to help couples grow marriages so they didn't need intensives. And, I learned very quickly that a lot of couples think they're doing okay until they're not doing okay. And then they get to a point of crisis and they look for help. And they go to a place like Family Life's Weekend to Remember, and that's a great ministry. But the problem is you're in their room with, maybe 40, 50. Here in Lancaster, there's like 300 couples that come to that event. I mean, it sells out the big Hershey Hotel here in town. So it's not really focused on individual couples. So the Smalley boys down in Branson, Missouri, pioneered the marriage intensives with a group called National Institute of Marriage, and that's kind of where I got exposed to marriage intensives. And they deal with couples basically who are struggling in crisis. A lot of our couples, Don, are pursuing separation. Many of them divorce, and this might be the last thing they do before they decide to do that. So I know we want to talk about how intensives can help healthy couples, but where we were focused initially was just dealing with couples in crisis and trying to give them some hope. And why intensives is so effective is because we have couples for a weekend.
For just a second. So you just mentioned a couple that's in crisis, if you will. What are some signals? So, so like you said, and you also said something super interesting. Some couples, they don't know they're in trouble until they're in trouble. I think that's really fascinating. So what are some signs that a couple need? And again, maybe the couple we're talking to right now that's listening to us, or they may know a couple,
Sure.
What are some signs that people need an intensive?
Basically, what we're seeing is, couples are walking away from each other. They've gotten emotionally distant. Sometimes trust has been broken. Sometimes it's as significant as an affair. Sometimes it's lying. We see a lot of pornography issues, and emotional affairs are growing where people aren't able to talk to their spouse about things. So they find a work wife or a work husband, and they begin pouring their hearts out to someone else who isn't their spouse. Inability to resolve conflict well, if at all. They find themselves attacking each other and not attacking the problem. They don't know how to communicate.
It may not be a couple who's about to file for divorce, but it may be a couple who's just really going through some significant. We're not. We just don't like each other in so many ways.
Sure.
Right? And
they wouldn't come to the intensive if they didn't want to make it work. And one of the things we try to do on Friday night is take them back. We use a Gottman technique of having them tell their story of how they met, fell in love, so that they can actually say, we did love each other once. And why aren't we there? But my wife's favorite.
What's an intensive like?
Well, the intensives, the reason they're more effective than therapy is, if you go to see a therapist, and there's nothing wrong with therapy, but most couples don't make it past 3 visits with a therapist. It's been our exposure. So when you come to an intensive, we get you for about 25 hours of life-on-life coaching in a small group setting. So if you and your wife were coming to an intensive, you'd probably show up here in Lancaster, and you'd be sitting around a cluster of tables with 2 other what we call client couples and 2 coaching couples that would be in the room. So there'd be 10 individuals in the room. So it's a very intimate setting. And we use the small group because we want couples to understand that they're not alone, that some of the problems they're experiencing, other couples are experiencing, and they're going to see a lot of themselves in each other and begin to think through how they might work through some things better. So we found the small group is really a fun, vital piece. And then we walk them to a curriculum, Don. What makes us different than a lot of other people that do intensives, number one, is we use a married husband and wife couple to lead these things. And we use a coaching model for a number of reasons, and we can talk about that later. But legally, therapists have to operate within their own state, and we've had couples from every state in the union here. It gives us the freedom to minister to them. But the biggest difference in my mind between the therapist and the coach, which makes, again, the intensive such a powerful experience, is our coaches have stories. Our coaches have, the therapists build a veil between you and the client. They don't talk about their life. They don't talk about them. And as a coach, we reach out and we're sharing our story. I'm sharing how I sold Karen's Mustang, the first year of our marriage. And, so people wonder why I'm still alive after doing stuff. But anyway, We
Yeah.
try to build relationship
I
and
bought
build
my wife a
rapport.
vacuum cleaner for her anniversary one time.
Yes, yes, been there, done that. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a mistake. It's a helpful tool, hon. Come on, you should be able
Yeah.
to do it. Yeah,
Thought I
we thank
nailed
you.
it, thought I just knocked it out of the park. Didn't go.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So we walk them through a curriculum. We try to help couples understand. We start off in Genesis. What did God intend for marriage to be? What did God want marriage to look like? What does it mean to be a helper, one who comes alongside of an advocate? And then the fall. Why aren't we who God wants us to be? And then deal with, and many of our couples, Don, aren't Christ followers. Matter of fact, the majority of them come in knowing we're faith-based, and they're really willing to tolerate Jesus to get a little help for their marriage. And it gives us an
So
opportunity to
would
share
you
the
say
gospel.
that, is the intensive a faith-based curriculum?
Yes, very much so.
But sometimes
We share.
people that aren't faith-based still want to go.
Oh, yeah. We've had, we had a professing atheist here last weekend. We've had people of the Jewish persuasion. We've had Muslims. We've had Mormons. A lot of old mainline denominational folks who haven't been in church. Same with the Catholics that haven't been going for a while. All have some roots and experience with the Bible and a vague idea of who God might be. But in many cases, they're kind of coming back to find out who God is and how he can help them into marriage. At least that's what we seem to see. So we share the gospel on Friday night, and our coaches are always tuned into sensitivity to couples. And we've seen couples come to the Lord through the intensive. So it's been a fun byproduct.
So an intensive, let me just make sure that I get this. So intensive is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday endeavor. It is
Yes.
at a specific location, so it's not online. It's not. It's at a location. You're in a small group with a few other couples with a coach who's had experience themselves and leads you through a specific curriculum that really helps you learn how to connect with your spouse.
You got it. Yes, sir.
Did I do a good summary?
You did. Better than I could do.
Well,
And much more succinct. Yeah.
Well, just repeating what you said there. And so, so I just want parents to hear that marriages to hear that, because, so often we don't know, where to send people. They're in trouble. What do you do? And then it becomes, well, we're thinking about divorce and tell us just a couple. I want to get into the coaching deal just a little bit next, but tell me a success story, that's happened. Well, I bet you don't have any, but just try to think of one, maybe.
Well, we actually have an 85% success rate, and that's determined by the couples are still married a year after they've been to one of our intensives. So traditional marriage counseling is right around 25 to 30% success rate. So
Wow.
the intensives work because we get that time exposure that therapists don't get, in fairness to them.
That's a great point that people usually do quit after 3 visits, or one of them doesn't go. I see a lot of my couples we counsel. Well, the husband won't go or the wife won't go. And so, the one guy's or girl's going, what am I doing here? And so, but
Sure.
you can't leave. You got a flight coming back or whatever, and you got to kind of stay till that flight comes home usually, right?
Yeah, but I think what makes couples stay, Don, is that we have a man and a woman leading the intensive. A lot of times the trauma therapist is, I'm a guy, I'm sitting in front of some female marriage counselor who might not like men, and I'm going to get blamed for everything. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to show up again.
One guy said that he feels like that we go to a counselor so they can hold me up so my wife can punch me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Holds up the bag and ties my arm behind my back so my wife can punch me. And so nobody wants to do that, right?
Exactly. So, and they feel safe because I'm sitting there, my wife's sitting there, or there's a husband and a wife sitting there. So everybody's going to be equally represented. And then we let them know on Friday night that, we're not here to defend any one spouse's position. Your marriage is our client, and that's what we're trying to build, and that's what we're trying to work. And we're going to speak to those issues that we see that might surround that. And so no one person is 100% to blame for where you are, and the only person you can change is you. So focus on what God wants to say to you this weekend and how you can change to become a better spouse.
So what would you say as we move into coaching a little bit, because you do that as well, and you have not only you guys, but a lot of other coaches that work. I see that on your website. So who goes to coaching versus who goes to an intensive?
That's a great question. Our intensives are basically geared, and couples, you kind of alluded to it earlier, the intensive was designed for couples in crisis. So some couples who aren't in crisis think, is the intensive going to be too much for me in terms of time, energy, making the trip to Lancaster or Maryland or California where we have our hubs. But we can do some coaching in an environment like you and I are talking right now virtually. And we have couples coaches, and you can just do that. And, you can buy 1, 2, 3 sessions. We're having trouble communicating, and that coach can just help you focus on communication, or you're dealing with a conflict, you're stuck on something. How can we help you? We're going to grow this into maybe having husband camps, wife camps, where we're going to talk, have a literal class on, how to be a husband.
This is done online, right?
Correct. The coaching is right.
Yeah.
And in that way. And honestly, it gives us the opportunity to follow up with a lot of our intensive couples that want to do a little bit more work as well.
Gotcha.
But yes,
when a couple comes in for their coaching, so what can they expect from their coach?
Well, what we try to do when you come into coaching, if you were to sign up for the free 30-minute session that we give all clients, we give you a little marriage inventory and let you rate your marriage where it is. And then our coach will walk down and say, your safety score is 23, your communication score is whatever. I propose that maybe we talk about let's build safety and work on building some trust, and then we can get to the communication issue you want to talk about. But so they would diagnose based on that little tool that we have, and where we can begin to start the coaching process that might be helpful. Because most couples commit.
Yeah. So basically, I'm looking at your website. So you pick a coach, you get a free 30-minute session to kind of see where you want to go with that, and then you start on that. And that's awesome.
All right. Well, and we'll see if there's a click there. If there's a chemistry there within the 30 minutes, and then if not, you can try it with another coach and see what's going on. And you can see right now, we just brought some couple coaches online, and then we have some women who will do, stuff for the ladies, and then some guy stuff that will deal with the guys, and maybe some more specific stuff, people just trying to get over, some personal trauma or whatever. So the coaching, I'm hoping, is going to be something that's going to be encouraging and strengthening marriages, and not necessarily for couples in crisis.
Right. And yes. And so, but it also, as contrast to the intensive, it's one-on-one. It's one on a couple. So you have a coach and a couple. And it looks like sometimes do you do married couples that sometimes do the coaches, or they can choose? So a lot of times, and that's unusual, I think, the coach is a married couple.
Correct. Yeah. That's what makes us distinct from a lot of other people that are doing marriage intensives, quite honestly. And if you and your wife wanted to do coaching online, you could sign up with one of our coaching couples, and we would coach you just like we're talking now, and it'd be one-on-one.
Well, and from Suzanne and I, we can attest. We have a marriage coach. It's not Bruce, but we have a marriage coach, a marriage couple actually, that has been coaching us for about 4 years. And one of the things I like about the couple that coaches us is they're not in our sphere of friends. So there is a lot of times in churches, and it's okay to do this too, but you get a mentor couple, but they're in your church. And so you kind of wonder, okay, what's good? You have friends and nobody knows what to say and not to say or whatever. And so, but this couple, godly couple, and they do this. There's just a few things I'll say about it. One of them is it's helped us tremendously. I mean,
Sure.
and they are able to say things to us that sometimes we're not able to say to each other. And it's sometimes amazing what my wife would say to me that I wouldn't listen to, but when the coach says it to me, I'll listen and do something.
Yeah.
I won't say that happens the other way around. Of course it does, but I can't say it because
You're not going to acknowledge it anyway. That's right.
Right. But also, so that's one thing. The second thing is, a lot of times we have been, felt like we've let the coaches down because maybe we haven't done what we said we were going to do. They gave us assignments and we didn't think about it again until 2 weeks later. And then, right before the session, we're scrambling to, what were we supposed to do and all that.
Get the homework done. Yep.
Yes, and we don't do it well. And we just, but in the midst of that, so even though that happens fairly consistently, and so we're probably not the best, subjects, if you will, in so many ways. It's still, if we look back over the long term of the 4 years we've used them, it's really helped our relationship, even though we haven't been. So I just say that to encourage parents, look at some coaching and, it really does help. And then also, and don't worry about whether you're going to not be the perfect client because, what really helps is that you're taking steps. It's not that the steps have to be perfect, but you're taking steps to help you with your marriage. And we just had a lot of benefit from it, Bruce. And so I'm a big fan of marriage coaching, and I can really attest to it personally.
That's great. Because, as you hit it, the accountability is huge. And I got to keep working on my marriage. It's so easy to let other things. One of the biggest issues we find with couples is the whole idea of priority, making each other the first human relationship with each other as husband and wife. And, and your sphere of dealing with parenting, it's so easy for kids. I like to call them termites. If you let them go out of control, they can eat a relationship right up and bust it down.
Yeah.
The second most vulnerable time for divorce is empty nest. After you've parented, you've spent so much time focusing on your kids that you haven't focused on each other. So doing marital maintenance while you're in active parenting is huge, because at the end of the day, the person I'm going to be sitting on the porch in the rocking chair with is my spouse. My kids are going to move and off they go. So you're absolutely right. The stronger the marriage, the stronger the family. And,
well, I think a couple things. One of them, I wanted to ask you a question, but before I ask the question, I wanted to say that it really is what you just said. I want to bring this point out is that what marriage coaching does, the tips will help and all the things you get out of the coaching, but also I believe that when you have a coach, just earlier this year, a guy challenged me to do 100 push-ups for 100 days. Well, I don't care what would have happened. If he didn't challenge me to do that, there's no way I would have done 100 push-ups for 100 days. But because he challenged me to do it, and we had this little group going, 3 of us guys, we did it. We did 100 push-ups for 100 days. And, I did it for a little bit afterwards. I don't do 100 push-ups anymore every day. I did it for a few days. I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But I didn't do it. So my point to that is that when we have a marriage coach, to your point, it makes you think about your marriage more. There's 2 things I think that you really get out of it. One of them is you get the tips, you get the belief change, the challenges from the coach, but it also makes you think about your relationship more. So here's the question I have. With the intensive, you said you go through a curriculum. In the marriage coaching, I'm guessing you really don't go through a curriculum, or do you? How does that work?
Well, The coaches may use some bits and pieces of our curriculum to address your specific issue, but educational learning style in the intensive, we control what the learner learns when the learner learns it. In the coaching setting, more often than not, we'll let you select the curriculum in terms of what we want to talk about and what we need to talk about, and then our coaches would go. So it'd be more needs based, but again,
I wanted to distinguish that for our listeners that the intensive has a curriculum. You're going down a strategy. It's an intensive is intense, by nature. A coaching session can be intense and but it's really, it does have a little bit more of a kind of a long-term feel to it, kind of let's do it. And what frequency, like, do you usually do your coaching sessions? Weekly, twice a month? How does that work?
Yeah, we like to do every other week, Don, because we like to give couples an assignment and give them a week to work on it, and then bring them back and see, what they've done and build on that. So our goal is every other week.
Is really good. And I also think that it also cuts down your costs. Like a therapist, a lot of times where you want to see every week, and man, that can really get expensive. Yeah. So, man, this has been so enlightening, Bruce. And maybe as before, I want to let you tell everybody how to communicate with you and things like that. But I have one final kind of section I want to go through. If you could kind of tell the main issues you're seeing in marriages right now, if you could just give these couples, okay, take this with you to work on this as your 40-year marriage counselor. You're not 19 anymore. You have been down the road 49 years of marriage, as well as, by the way, my parents have been married for 69 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but in that time, what would you tell, if you had to just say a couple of things, what's God putting on your heart, if you will, that you want to share for these parents to take, or these married couples to take with them?
Well, I think I probably share with you, Don, the most important one that I see is the priority piece, and just making each other, the priority, taking care of the marriage relationship and not letting other relationships, whether they be work, kids, get between you and building the relationship with your spouse, and just working on that and keeping it mindful. There's going to be times, obviously, when that balance, there's demands that are going to take you away from, but to keep drifting apart is going to be a bad thing. The second thing I think is to develop safety. When I got trained to do the intensives, the one guy said, how many of you are in a safe marriage? And I raised my hand, thinking that safety meant, Karen's never really hit me or verbally abused me or, cussed me out or anything like that. So he said, okay, put your hands down. And then he said, how many of you have ever lied to your spouse because you were afraid of the reaction you might get if you told him or her the truth? And I raised my hand again, and he said, I thought you said you were safe. And I thought, okie dokie, I guess I'm not safe. So a lot of couples aren't safe enough to really, we call it in the intensive, get back to naked. God, they were naked and unashamed at the end of Genesis chapter 2. And when sin came, they hid their nakedness, and they, hid themselves from each other. We still hide each other from each other because we don't feel safe enough to be who we truly are, what we truly want to be in front of our spouses. So how do we build safety, and sometimes that's linked to trust. The trust has been broken and the need to repair that. So I think, those to me are two really significant pillars of building a vibrant marriage and a family, is safety and trust that we can.
Going back to that first one, in a practical sense, what do you think that married couples can do? A lot of our couples have kids that are 10, 7, and 4. You got baseball games, you got, soccer games, you got, dance practice, whatever it is. How do you tell those parents, and they come to you and they're in an intensive or they're pretty broken, what do you do to tell them to, just a couple of things they might do to prioritize their relationship?
Well, that's, you hit on I think the biggest one is schedule. And when do you schedule time for you? And it's just as important for you and your spouse to have a regular date night as it is to get your kid to ballet or, to the soccer game or whatever, and to put those in your calendar in ink as well, so that that becomes a priority. And you're also going to communicate to your children the importance of mommy and daddy, if you will, spending time with each other and building their relationship. And Karen and I, what we did is we limited our kids to one event per season, basically, rather than trying to play 3 sports or do this, that, and the other thing.
We did that too.
Yeah, just pick the one, and, depending on the number of kids you have and the schedule, but the one thing, and then just basically educate your kids that mommy and daddy are going to have mommy and daddy time. We're going to have a date night.
Yeah, and also related to the safety one of the things I just was thinking about as you were talking about is is go to your spouse and just, like one of the things we tell our parents a lot is just to go to bed together. Go to bed together, and then while you're there, just ask questions about how your spouse is feeling about things or whatever, creating that, think about, you can kind of combine the two. If you prioritize your marriage and then you have you create that safe environment for them to talk to you.
Right. We call them, I'm looking at the curriculum here. So we have something we call check-ins.
Watch out, guys. We're going.
The book is coming. There it comes. Well, I thought you might like these questions, and your listeners might like these questions. So one of the things we ask couples to do is ask 5 questions, at least, to one another once a week. All right. So here's the 5. How did you feel loved by me this week? Is there something I did that made you feel special and appreciated? Number 2, what was the highlight of this week for you? What was the most challenging thing you faced? What brought you joy? What was a challenge? Because most often, and you know this because you're a guy like me, my wife says, "How was your day?" I say, "What? Fine."
Yeah.
Right. So when Karen asked me, "Hey, what was the highlight of your week? What got you excited this week?" And I can say, "Well, we got an email from a couple just thanking us for what happened during the weekend." And, so I begin to talk about something a little bit deeper than just fine. And she gets a little peek into my heart. What does a week coming look like for you? What are some things that you're excited about for this week? What are some things you're afraid of this week? And then 4th question is, how can I pursue you? How can I encourage you? And then the last question is, how can I pray for you? So we try to give couples that tool of a check-in, and on a regular basis, just and if you do that in the context of a date night, that's fine. Karen and I often do it, and our kids aren't home anymore, so we're in a different place. But we usually do it in the morning after I get back from the gym. We sit down and just do a little knee-to-knee, nose-to-nose, and talk about that. And that's probably once a week we talk about this question specifically.
Why don't you send me that in an email when we're done? I'll put those in the show notes, those 5 questions.
Sure.
They can take them, and then let's go into also what we're going to put in the show notes. But let's talk about it a little bit. So, how do people get in touch with you, and where are you going with your ministry?
Well, first question is www.themarriagehub.com.
TheMarriageHub.com.
The Marriage Hub. Yeah, you don't want just Marriage Hub. It'll take you to some dating site in India or something. So it's
don't want that. Don't want that.
You got to have the Marriage Hub.
In India. I really don't.
No, it's a mixed marriage for you there.
And in that, they'll find the intensives and the coaching, and also it looks like some free resources as well.
Yeah, there's a bunch of articles. We're always looking for couples, Don, to pray for us during our intensives. We have a prayer team of probably close to 300 couples who are praying for our couples every weekend that come. They get an email from us describing, they don't know the couple's names. It would just be, if it'd be D and S are coming and this is their issue, and, B and K are going to be there. And this is their issue. So people have an idea.
So people, I just want to make sure people know this is that you can tell I have the gift. I've been told I have the spiritual gift of summary. So,
Good.
so the one of them is they can attend an intensive or send somebody to that, but also they can have groups that pray for them. But also, I noticed that there's a donate button, and what happens is that helps to scholarship or partially scholarship people to go. So some people just may have a heart for in marriages that are in trouble, and so if you do, there's a way to help that. And then
you can become a support couple. If you and your spouse wanted to come up and sit around the table with the couples and our coaches, we have support couples, are basically concierge type couples. They're here to help us meet the needs of the couples, make sure they're comfortable. The snack tables.
If you go to Lancaster, you can go to Amish country. You can go to see the Hershey plant.
There you go.
It's a great city to go to. It's got so much history. So that's a great place to go. But let's finish.
Or California, if you'd like. We have one in Ventura, California, and in Maryland. So, and hopefully coming soon to Phoenix, Arizona. So that's somewhat close to you guys.
Yeah, and you're looking in Texas too, right?
We'd love to do something in Texas. The third most searched state that we get responses from is the Texas area, Houston specifically. But as I was sharing, Dallas, Fort Worth is a great hub. And
there's a lot of bad marriages in Texas, is what you're saying.
There's a lot of bad marriages everywhere, my friend. Yes.
So themarriagehub.com, and we'll put all this in the show notes. And so intensives, coachings, and as well as just some tips. I love that, to prioritize your marriage and just be as safe. It's one of the things we talk. Two things. If you look at Crazy Cool Family, our family dashboard, what's first? Your relationship with God. What's second? Your marriage. Then, but the kids are important. But if you don't do those two things first, you're going to see some cracks in your family vision. And then just, whether it's the coaching, can't say enough about that. And then just one of the things we talk about in our culture pillars is to be a safe haven, to be a place where you learn how to listen to your spouse, you learn how to encourage them more, just things like that is part of what they're going to coach you on. So, Bruce, thank you so much for being with us. Anything else we need to tell these couples out here or about marriage?
Just keep on pursuing each other. That's the key.
Well, thank you for being with us, and we are very excited. We'll put all of his information in the show notes, and we will. We'll just if you have any questions about that, you can also just email us to info@crazycoolfamily.com. Thank you, Bruce, for being with us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time and your willingness to help others learn about our ministry.
Yeah, as always, parents, go be crazy. crazycoolfamily.com.